So I'm going to talk a little bit about gun policy in this video and some debate things that come up. When I'm debating gun policy with people, and particularly non-Americans, but some Americans too, and I try to explain to these people the philosophy that undergirds the American system, there's a not uncommon refrain that gets thrown at me, and it'll be something along the lines of, "Oh, well, that's only a hope, isn't it?" Or, "That's just an aspiration, right?" In the same way that a creationist will say, "Oh, it's only a theory," as though it's actually an indictment against the proposition that's being proposed. So I'll say something like the American system, the philosophy undergirding it is that it is unwise to concentrate too much power in any one particular place. That's what gives rise to the horizontal division of powers at the federal level. 3 co-equal branches. The vertical division of powers between the federal government and the states. That is to say that there are certain powers that are granted to the federal government that are enumerated in the Constitution, and there are certain powers that are reserved to the states and certain rights that are reserved to the people. One of which is the right to keep and bear arms, among some others, which are important. I don't mean to diminish them, but I'm talking about the Second Amendment in this case. And the hope of the Second Amendment is, as I've mentioned before, it's a doomsday provision. On the one hand, you hope that it serves as a deterrent against a tyrannical government, but on the other hand, if it fails, you have the tools available to you to be able to offer up some kind of meaningful resistance. Perhaps you will win, perhaps you will lose. No one can predict the future. Wars are uncertain, in addition to being absolutely horrible events to happen. And so DPR Jones has said this to me, a lot of other people, but I was on the Magic Sandwich Show about a year ago debating gun policy, and he responded by saying, "Oh, it is just a hope after all, isn't it?" Well, sure. In the same way that having criminal sanctions for murder is just a hope. We hope that a sentence of 25 years will be a greater deterrent against people committing murder than a sentence of 3 minutes. No one really knows. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but that's the aspiration. It's very difficult to find out how many murders are actually prevented by having a law that has some particular sanctions. Clearly it doesn't stop everybody. There's no shortage of murderers running around. The only way to figure that out is to posit 2 universes, the one of which that we live in, and some nearly identical universe where the only thing that's changed is the length of the penalty for murder. We can't do that. We have exactly one universe that operates the way that it does, and we're doing the best that we can with imperfect knowledge of the future. None of us has this crystal ball to predict what we do what are going to be the down-the-road consequences of what it is that we're doing today. So a lot of it is aspirational. And you make reasonable judgments based on how people seem to operate. If there's a deterrent to doing a thing, it will discourage some people from doing it. Does it discourage everyone? No. But you can't stop every person from doing it. If you could, you wouldn't have to have penalties for anything. All you'd have to do is write a law that said, "Don't do this," and people would immediately obey it. But that doesn't seem to work. So you would have to ask, I guess, people, if this law didn't exist, would you really go out and murder someone? Now, some people will say, "Oh, God, I wish it weren't illegal for me to kill you because I'd kill you right here on the spot." I don't think those people are, in the main, being serious about it. I don't think that they're really saying, "God, I've thought about it, I want to kill you, I would do it if only someone had not written it down on a sheet of paper somewhere that I can't." You're very lucky some people wrote that down. That's all I'm saying, sir. I don't think that's really what people mean when they say, "God, I'd like to kill you." I don't think they really mean, "I want to commit murder." Maybe they all do. I don't know. I don't live inside their heads. So you have that. They will say this, "It's only a hope." It's particularly novel coming from attorneys. It's only a hope that having an adversarial procedure in a court will help achieve justice. Injustices happen in courts. Obviously, the adversarial system is not perfect. It fails quite a lot of people. The hope is that in the aggregate, in the main, the mind run of cases, if you have an adversarial position where you have one side, you have one party arguing one position and another party arguing the negation of that position in front of an impartial mediator, that the impartial mediator will be able to look at the evidence objectively and come out with the right and just conclusion. It doesn't happen all the time, but it's a good idea. So you get that, and then you get the this very convenient amount of, well, I don't even know if it's amnesia so much as just poor education. The other day I saw a cartoon, Jerry Coyne put it up on his website, and it was a tally of number of tyrants stopped, and then on the other side it was number of fellow citizens killed, and had a whole bunch of check marks, or ticks on one side and then a big fat zero on tyrant stop. This person is probably poorly educated, but I suppose he is aware of all these other things and he's just a liar. Either could be the case. But when people want to talk about a tyrant, they want to think about Hitler, Napoleon, Stalin, Pol Pot. The big guys, the ones who, if you don't have millions of deaths to your name, you're not any kind of credible tyrant and you don't count. It wouldn't be, say, the slave owner owning his slaves. That person is a tyrant. A person who claims ownership over another person's body for some reason no greater than, I don't want to have to pay for laborers or something of that nature. That person is exacting a tyranny against that victim. But that doesn't count. If you want to look at the tyrannies that the United States has perpetrated, or that have been perpetrated in the United States, I shouldn't say the United States itself perpetrated. It didn't do all of them. Some of them have been done by states and other political subdivisions. But we have a long, unproud history in this country of tyrannizing people. Slavery, that was a big tyranny, just an obvious one. The internment of the innocent, law-abiding Japanese-American citizens during the Second World War. And indeed, the Army general who was keeping them knew that they weren't a threat. The FBI director had said, these people aren't a threat. But somehow or other, they all decided just to keep them there anyway, and the Supreme Court goes, oh, well, yeah, okay, you can kind of do that. One of two people has to run this war. It's either going to be the president or us, and we're not in any kind of position to be running a war. So whatever the president wants to do for the exigencies of war, he can do. It is beyond all doubt. I don't think anyone actually believes that interning those Japanese Americans actually did anything for the security of the country. Those people had done nothing wrong. Now, one thing that does happen, by the way, when you start going around all willy-nilly imprisoning people, you do tend to piss off a lot of their relatives and other people, and you can actually cause people to want to do something that they did not set out to do in the beginning, that they wouldn't have done in the beginning had you not gone around all willy-nilly fucking with people. So there was that tyranny. There are other tyrannies that have happened, lesser tyrannies, but tyrannies nevertheless. The people who were being oppressed by that were being oppressed. Like one of the favorite ones I like to talk about is the Battle of Athens. This is talking about stealing an election. This was literally trying to steal the election. The police went after the vote had happened, stole the ballot boxes, absconded with those ballot boxes to the sheriff's department or the city hall, whatever, one of the buildings, and locked themselves in because they knew that the other side that was going to oust their boss and by proxy, or by extension oust them, was going to win that particular contest, that particular election. And they said, well, we can't be having this. We want to retain power. We'll steal all the ballots. We'll take them in here and count them in secret and announce the winner, which, it should be no great surprise to people, will be the ones that we want to win. And some World War II veterans decided, you know, this isn't exactly kosher. Maybe that's not the best turn of phrase there with respect to the Second World War. This isn't cool. So they went and raided the National Guard armory, armed themselves, and set siege to the building where the ballots were being held. And they had a big gun battle. And I don't remember how it ended now, but I don't remember expressly how it ended. The long and short of it is they got the ballots, but I think, and someone will have to look this up and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the way they finally wound up ending that siege is by using explosives to remove the front part of the building so that way the people inside no longer had any shelter to hide behind. And then they went in and got the ballots, and the ballots were counted in accordance to the law, the way the law is supposed to be, the way they were supposed to be counted. And those horrible, horrible, evil people, those tyrants, were ousted from office. That's a tyranny. No doubt about it. A government deciding that it will no longer stand for election, or more particularly, it will stand for election, but it and it alone gets to count in secret, no less. The ballots to let you know who really won the election, because nothing could ever go wrong with that. After all, I'm told that North Korea, the dear leader there, or whatever his name is, whatever his title is now, 99% of the people vote for him, so apparently he's well loved. Who knew? Anyway, that kind of thing. That is a tyranny, by any stretch of the imagination. One definition of tyranny that I like a weak form of is that tyranny is when the government grants to itself a power to do something that it denies to you. Now, there are some, like I said, I like a weaker form of that. Obviously, Well, I don't think anyone should have nuclear weapons, but that's a whole other issue. But I don't think that it's a tyranny to say that these people can't have nuclear devices, though I don't agree with the proposition that the other group should have them. Although, I will point out that is just another one of those aspirations of human endeavors, that our having the ability to annihilate anyone else who tries to attack us serves as a deterrent against these people trying to attack us. Similarly, well, mutually assured destruction, as I've mentioned, it's not a particularly attractive policy, it's not a particularly aesthetically pleasing policy, it's not a particularly friendly policy, it has extremely dire consequences. Nevertheless, it seemed to have worked for about 50 years. It kept two great powers from engaging in conventional warfare, which, for all we know, would have sacrificed tens of millions of more lives. If you look at the Second World War, the estimates there are, depending on which group of guesstimating you'd like to go with, between 50 million and 100 million people killed in a conventional war. And these are the people who are aware of those facts will also complain about the detonation of 2 nuclear bombs in Japan. Well, yes, the detonation of those 2 bombs is an absolutely horrible event. But for all anyone knows, that did in fact save lives, and indeed showing the world what the power of a nuclear device looks like may well have been able to prevent the furtherance of another war, another global conflict that would have arisen. Maybe, maybe not. It's just a hope. Again, no one has a crystal ball, and you cannot predict what are going to be the down-the-road consequences of all of the individual decisions, or even the aggregate of the decisions that we make today. So when these people go around complaining about it's just a hope, I hear that in the same way as I mentioned earlier that I hear a creationist say, it's only a theory. It's the last vapid argument of a person who doesn't have an argument. It's a rhetorical point. It might well work for some mental valetudinarians, but I'm not one of those, so don't use it on me. Have a great day.